Suddenly, I felt a light impact on my chest, followed by a cold sensation. Someone had thrown water at me, and the act was caught on camera. I was celebrating my 65th birthday with my family. As I thought about turning 65, I couldn't help but feel that time had passed quickly. Now, I've reached the midpoint of my 60s, and in just 5 more years, I'll be 70. It's strange to think about, even though it's my own life. Sure, I've aged, but I'm still healthy, and while my physical strength may have declined compared to my younger days, I feel mentally strong and full of energy. In terms of appearance, I like to think that I look younger than others my age, though that's just my personal opinion. I'm fortunate to still be able to work, feeling fulfilled each day. My job involves preparing meals for a university dormitory. I joined a company that provides catering services and was assigned to this dormitory. Feeding these young people with hearty appetites has been a pleasure. I decide the menu, order the ingredients, and cook the meals myself. I've never found this job to be a burden. It's hard work, but seeing them eat my food with such enthusiasm and hearing them say thank you makes it all worthwhile. I've turned down several offers for reassignment and have continued working here even after retirement age. Although my work schedule is now more flexible, I still spend most of my week at the dormitory. I'm deeply grateful for my husband and son's understanding and support, which have made this possible. I consider myself truly blessed to have such a wonderful husband and son.
Mom, happy birthday. I hope you stay healthy forever.
My 25-year-old son Brian handed me a birthday present while saying something sweet. As we gathered around the slightly more extravagant dinner table, I felt nothing but happiness. When the fun celebration was coming to an end, Brian spoke up.
Actually, Mom, Dad, there's someone I'm thinking of marrying. What? Since when have you been seeing someone? I had no idea. I kept it a secret pretty well, huh? You're like a secret agent or something. A secret agent? That's not a very good analogy, Dad. A spy or something would have been better.
My husband, Jack, always tries to lighten the mood, but his sense of humor is a bit off. Unfortunately, Brian seems to have inherited this trait, which leads to somewhat awkward moments. Neither secret agent nor spy quite fits the bill. I'm surprised, but it's wonderful news. So, what's she like? Brian works in sales for a food distribution company. He met Mary, his girlfriend, through business dealings with a company that makes prepared foods.
She works in product development, coming up with new ideas for things like side dishes. She's really creative, Mom. I think you two would get along.
It sounds like we might. Brian wanted to introduce Mary to us, so we tried to find a suitable time. Unfortunately, my husband's schedule didn't line up, so he'd have to meet her another time.
That's too bad. I was really looking forward to meeting Brian's future wife. I even had some ideas to liven things up.
Hearing this, I was actually relieved that my husband couldn't attend. Whatever he had in mind was probably off target, so it was best not to ask. When I first met my husband, he surprised me with an outlandish act, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had something similar planned. More than 30 years ago, I met him at a group date organized by a friend. There were supposed to be 3 men and 3 women, but one of the men was running late. The man who was late turned out to be my future husband.
Sorry to keep you all waiting.
When he finally arrived, he waved to us, and as he did, his hand fell off at the wrist. The women, including myself, screamed in shock. The 2 men who had arrived earlier seemed used to this and just chuckled.
Whoops, there goes my hand. But don't worry, it'll grow back.
He bent down to pick up the hand, then pulled out his real hand from inside his sleeve.
Gotcha! Did I surprise you? Wasn't that fun?
It was just a prank, but instead of finding it amusing, we were simply startled. My first impression of Jack was that he was a strange person, and I never imagined that I would end up dating, let alone marrying him. I still remember that day clearly, and my husband's love for pranks didn't end there. On the day of our wedding, he pulled another stunt just before the reception. He suddenly disappeared without a trace. I sat at the table, filled with worry and anxiety, wondering what had happened to him. The guests were starting to murmur among themselves, and I felt more and more uneasy. Just when I was on the verge of tears, a server approached me from behind and poured beer into my glass, saying, "Relax." At a moment like this, how could I possibly relax? When I turned around, I was shocked to see that the server was actually my husband, dressed in the venue's staff uniform.
"Allow me to serve today's star, my lovely bride. Nothing makes me happier than seeing my bride smile."
My husband struck a pose, grinning from ear to ear. No one in the room knew what to make of the situation, but his friends, who were familiar with his antics, started clapping and cheering. This encouraged the other guests to join in, and the awkward silence finally turned into laughter. If it weren't for his friends' support, I'm sure the guests would have been appalled by my husband's foolish behavior. Although he considered the prank a great success, I couldn't help but think that his energy could have been better spent elsewhere. Instead of feeling joy on our wedding day, I was left with an uneasy feeling. We had hired a videographer to record the wedding, but I was unable to smile during the reception, so the video shows me looking anxious. Despite his childish pranks, marrying my husband turned out to be the best decision of my life. If there is such a thing as a fateful encounter, then meeting my husband was certainly one of those moments. When we got married, I was already 35 years old, and he was 5 years older. It was the first marriage for both of us. I hadn't really been interested in getting married because I was so focused on my career, and I hadn't met anyone special until I met my husband. Given my age, I wanted to have children as soon as possible. I knew there were risks associated with having a baby later in life, and I hoped to conceive quickly and have a healthy pregnancy. But having children isn't something that always happens as planned. We struggled to conceive, and as the years passed, my anxiety grew. After 5 years, I was beginning to accept that it might not happen for us. But then, just as I was preparing to give up, we were blessed with Brian. Both my husband and I were overjoyed, eagerly awaiting Brian's arrival. But even during Brian's birth, my husband couldn't resist pulling a prank. As Brian let out his first cry, my husband raised his arms in triumph, and his right hand suddenly fell to the floor. The nurse, caught off guard, stepped back in surprise.
"Whoops, my hand was born too."
My husband laughed, revealing that he had kept the fake hand from all those years ago. Despite his antics, Brian inherited his father's sense of humor and grew up to be a kind-hearted, if somewhat mischievous young man. Fortunately, my husband's pranks never caused serious harm or offended anyone, and Brian seemed to have inherited this trait as well. Now, Brian had found someone to marry, and at 25, he was much younger than we were when we got married. There would be no worries about a high-risk pregnancy for them, and the thought of becoming a grandmother made me realize how much time had passed. Brian showed me a photo of Mary, and she was a beautiful woman with a warm smile. I was looking forward to meeting her. On the day we were supposed to meet her, I was nervous as I waited for them to arrive. Since Brian had moved out for work, this was the first time he was coming home since my birthday celebration.
"I'm home, Mom. This is Mary, my fiancée."
Standing next to Brian was a woman even more beautiful in person than in the photo. "Hi, Rachel. Nice to meet you. I'm Mary." Her voice was clear and strong, and she seemed like a dependable young woman, a perfect match for my somewhat scatterbrained son. That was my first impression. "Please, come in." I invited them into the living room and served coffee and snacks as we chatted. I wondered what kind of person Mary was, just as she might be curious about me, her future mother-in-law.
"You must have been surprised, huh? Our house is so small compared to yours, Mary."
"It's clean and cozy, though. Bigger isn't always better." It must have been a shock, though, seeing how small our place is. We've lived here since we got married. It's so comfortable that we never wanted to leave. Our home is an apartment with 6 units, 3 on each floor, and we live in the middle unit on the second floor. Although the building is old, it's been well maintained with fresh paint, so it looks nice. But when Brian told me about Mary's family home, which was a grand mansion, I couldn't help but feel a bit insecure. Her father is the president of the company she works for. Marrying her, a company president's daughter, a far cry from our modest lifestyle. So, Mary, I hear your father runs a company. It's hard to believe someone like you would choose to marry an ordinary guy like Brian. In this day and age, that kind of thing doesn't matter. Brian is an excellent businessman and highly regarded at work. My father even hopes he'll play an important role in our company someday. I know your company. It's a growing business with a strong reputation for quality prepared foods. I have heard you're the one responsible for developing those delicious products. When I mentioned Mary's work, Brian immediately chimed in, looking proud.
That's right. Mary's creativity and originality are incredible. I think she's on par with you, Mom.
For a moment, I thought I saw Mary's expression change, but it was so brief that I dismissed it. I've heard you're in the culinary field as well. I'm sure learning from you would help expand our company's menu offerings. I was flattered by her compliment and ended up talking a bit too much about my work. But she listened attentively, never showing any sign of boredom. That is very educational. Where did you study these foundational skills? I didn't go to university. I went straight to culinary school after high school. I had considered going to university, but I was eager to start working in the culinary field, so I chose the more practical path of culinary school. I earned my certifications as a chef and a dietitian simultaneously upon graduation. Mary, you graduated from a prestigious university, didn't you? Brian graduated from a top university with honors too, you know. Brian was a smart student who graduated with excellent grades from a well-known university. It was impressive to see how he applied what he learned at university to his work and earned recognition for it. As we talked, Brian and Mary mentioned that they had started looking at wedding venues.
Mary's parents are really busy, so they suggested that we hold the family introductions just before the wedding ceremony. Is that okay with you, Mom?
I wasn't sure if doing it all on the same day would be a good idea, but I decided to trust their judgment. It would be difficult for my husband and me to take time off for a separate meeting, so this might be the best option. The conversation flowed easily, and before I knew it, the time had passed quickly. After seeing them off, I was excited to tell my husband about the day. I imagined him being eager to hear all about it and couldn't help but smile at the thought. Occasionally, I recalled Mary's slightly altered expressions during the conversation, but I didn't think much of it and soon forgot about it. However, 3 days later, Mary unexpectedly showed up at my workplace. Brian told me about your job, but I didn't expect you to work in a place like this. Her words, a place like this, took me aback, and I asked her why she had come. I'm here to see what kind of work you do. I wanted to see it for myself. Also, aren't you 65 years old? Why are you still working at that age? You must be really poor to have to keep working at your age, especially in such a small, shabby house. Mary, what's going on? I'm not working because I'm poor. I love what I do. It gives me a sense of purpose. Sure, say what you want. Your husband is still working too, right? Isn't he older than you? It's pathetic for 2 elderly people to have to work just to get by. The warmth and grace that Mary had shown us during our first meeting were gone, replaced by disdain and arrogance. And to think that someone like you, without a university degree, is going to be my mother-in-law? It's unbelievable. No wonder you're poor and stuck in a dead-end job. Wait a minute. There's a lot of misunderstanding here. Let's talk this through. There's nothing to discuss. Your job is just cooking for a bunch of students. It's pocket change at best, a bottom-tier job. I was stunned into silence by Mary's harsh words, unable to respond. Brian is moving on to a different world, a world where your dirty little life has no place. I want as little to do with you as possible." With that, Mary turned on her heel and left, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded. I couldn't bring myself to tell my husband or Brian what had happened. Both of them were so happy about the upcoming wedding, and I didn't want to spoil that. I figured she must be seriously mistaken about some things, but I hoped that we could clear the air if we just talked.
Mom, are you free this Sunday? Mary's mom can't make it to the wedding dress fitting, so could you come with me instead? I have no idea about dresses.
If I had a daughter, I would have loved to go dress shopping with her, so this invitation was appealing. Brian, are you sure Mary is okay with me coming?
Of course, Mom. Why are you even asking?
No reason. I'm free on Sunday, so I'll go with you. I decided that this would be a good opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings with Mary and repair our relationship. But on Sunday, my plan fell apart, sinking like a stone to the bottom of a deep pond. Brian was running late, so I met Mary alone in the bridal shop's dressing room. As soon as she saw me, she unleashed a barrage of harsh words. "Why did you come? I thought you'd take the hint and stay away. You're so thick-skinned." "Mary, let's talk." "There's nothing to talk about. You're just going to dirty this place up. You're a poor, lowly cook with no education. What do you even know about dresses?" She didn't even try to hide her disdain, speaking to me with outright contempt. "You should just go back to your filthy kitchen and scurry around like a rat." Before I could respond, Brian entered the room, looking surprised.
"Sorry I'm late."
"Oh, Brian, your mother just remembered she has something to do and needs to leave. But don't worry, we'll pick out the dress together."
What?
Mary's lie was so smooth and natural that I couldn't even refute it. I had no choice but to go along with it and leave, supposedly due to an urgent matter. I've heard that some people can be very self-centered and unable to see things from others' perspectives, and Mary seemed to be one of those people. I began to worry if Brian would be okay with someone like her, but he didn't seem to notice her true nature. Meanwhile, the wedding plans continued, and invitations had been sent out. The wedding day was fast approaching. A week before the wedding, Brian came home saying he wanted to eat my homemade food.
This is it. This is the taste I grew up with. I think Mary could really benefit from learning this too.
It had been a while since I'd seen Brian enjoy my cooking like this, so I was glad I put effort into it.
Oh, and yesterday, Mary and I tried something different. We went to a fortune teller for the first time.
A fortune teller?
Yeah, I don't know why, but we decided to try it out after dinner. The fortune teller said that the day of our wedding is the peak of my luck, but leading up to it, I'm in a low period. So she advised against doing anything significant until the wedding day itself.
Brian and Mary had planned to register their marriage at the local government office before the wedding, but the fortune teller advised against it, saying it would be better to wait until the wedding day.
I usually don't take these things seriously, but she was so adamant that it made me reconsider, so I think I'll follow her advice. Mary wasn't too happy about it, but I think it's easier to remember if our anniversary and wedding date are the same.
We laughed about it, but little did we know that we would soon be grateful to that fortune teller. The day of the wedding was blessed with perfect weather. However, despite searching everywhere, I couldn't find Brian, and my husband had also disappeared. I was starting to worry, especially since the family introductions were supposed to happen soon. While I was walking around, trying to figure out what to do, I suddenly ran into Mary, dressed in her wedding gown. "Mary, you look beautiful. By the way, have you seen Brian?" Because of what she had done to me, I didn't feel comfortable speaking to her, but I needed to find Brian. "Who knows? He seems to have vanished. But more importantly, why are you even here? Can't you take a hint? You're really stupid. This is why people with no education are so annoying." Mary's voice echoed through the empty hallway, but no one else was around except for a few staff members going about their work. You're so annoying. I'm so sick of you. Just then, I felt a light impact on my chest, followed by a cold sensation. Oh, did you get splashed? You should be grateful. It'll clean up that shabby outfit. Mary had thrown the water from the glass she had holding at me. The water soaked my clothes, the coldness seeping into my skin. Maybe now you look a little cleaner. Mary laughed hysterically, relishing her own cruel joke. But I couldn't hold back my anger any longer. I won't say this again. I am proud of my job, preparing meals for thousands of students. I am nothing like you, and being in your presence is degrading. Just then, someone stepped in between us, and to my surprise, it was Brian.
Mary, what the hell are you doing? I had no idea you were like this. Have you been deceiving me all this time?
Brian, wait! This isn't what it looks like! And what's with your outfit? Brian was dressed in a staff uniform from the venue.
I dressed up like this to surprise you, but I'm the one who got the surprise. This is a nightmare.
As Brian and Mary argued, a middle-aged couple suddenly burst out of the room next door. Dad? Mom?
What on earth are you doing?
Mary's father looked shocked, and her mother stared at her in confusion. I didn't do anything! She's lying! Mary tried to blame me, but Brian wasn't having it.
Don't even try, Mary. The whole thing was caught on camera. Everyone's been watching in real time.
Brian pointed to a staff member holding a small camera, but as I looked closer, I realized that the person holding the camera was my husband. What are you doing in that outfit? Brian answered for him.
We wanted to capture everything on film, especially the moments leading up to the family introductions. I got the idea from Dad's old story about pretending to be a server at your wedding.
It turns out my husband had helped Brian pull off the plan.
I'm so sorry for my daughter's behavior. Wait, did you say that Brian's mother is the woman I was just introduced to?
Mary's father suddenly looked pale as he realized who I was. What's the big deal? Why does it matter if this woman is poor?
Mary, do you even know who this woman is? She's not just anyone. She's a highly respected culinary expert. I can't believe you didn't know this.
As her father explained, Mary's face turned white with shock. This can't be true! It's impossible! I am a well-known culinary expert with years of experience. I've published countless recipes with several cookbooks reaching bestseller status.
Not knowing who my wife is in the culinary world, especially as someone in the food industry, is inexcusable.
My husband Jack spoke harshly to Mary. It was he who first noticed my culinary skills when I was developing original menus that the students loved. Our story goes back to before we got married.
My brother told me about you, and I was amazed by your cooking. It's so creative and, of course, absolutely delicious. I had to ask you if you would publish a cookbook with us.
My husband, who was working as an editor for a publishing company, asked if I would consider publishing a cookbook. He was known as a sharp and talented editor in the industry, and I later found out that he had organized a group date as a way to meet me. At first, I declined, thinking my cooking wasn't good enough. But my husband's persistence paid off, and the cookbook became a huge success. That's how my career as a culinary expert began. While I was lost in these memories, I heard Mary's father scolding her, which snapped me back to reality.
Remember when I told you we were planning a big collaboration with a famous culinary expert? Well, this woman is that expert. How could you not know?
That can't be true! This has to be a mistake!
Someone as ignorant and rude as you could never make good food. Oh, by the way, I'm Rachel's brother, and the one who introduced her to Brian.
Mary and her parents froze in shock.
That's right, Uncle. I completely agree.
Brian nodded at his uncle, who was also the president of the company.
If this is how someone in your company behaves, we'll have to reconsider our business dealings and investments. Please wait. If we lose your investment, our company won't survive. Our reputation hinges on this collaboration with Mary, so we can't afford to cancel it.
Realizing that his company's survival was at stake due to Mary's actions, her father's face grew paler by the second.
When I was in college, I was so grateful for the delicious meals my sister made for us. Everyone in the dorm felt the same way, and some even formed a fan club for her. If they found out what happened today, they wouldn't take it lightly.
Mary and her parents stood there, horrified as my brother recounted the deep respect the students have for me. I was just doing my job, but the students were so appreciative that some even cried when they graduated and left the dorm. As my reputation grew as a culinary expert, former students started a fan club for me, which eventually grew into a sizable group. While everyone else was talking, I couldn't get a word in edgewise, but there was something I needed to say to Mary. You called our apartment shabby and assumed we were poor, but that apartment building is ours. The unit you visited is the one we moved into when we first got married, and we kept it the same out of sentiment. The other 5 units have been renovated and rented out. I couldn't stand the thought of our beloved home being looked down upon, so I needed to clear that up.
Mary, I'm calling off the wedding. We clearly aren't compatible, and it's better we found out before it was too late.
As soon as Brian said this, Mary broke down in tears. The wedding was called off, and the guests were served the food that had already been prepared. The monetary gifts were returned, and Mary's father covered the wedding expenses, which she would have to pay back gradually. She was also fired from her job and sent to work at a relative's lodging facility. Word of what happened at the wedding quickly spread, and even if Mary hadn't been fired, she likely would have resigned due to the cold reception she received from everyone around her. While the situation was unfortunate, Mary's father took responsibility as a company president and imposed the appropriate consequences on her. Because of that, I decided not to cancel our collaboration, and my brother continued the business relationship with their company. Without her, there would be fewer concerns moving forward. Although I hadn't told Brian, I went to visit the fortune teller who had advised him to oppose their marriage registration. I wanted to thank the fortune teller for her guidance. Oh, so that young man was your son? I'm glad I could help. You know who I am? Yes, I was one of the students who enjoyed your meals at the dorm. I'm also a member of the Rachel fan club. The fortune teller had been a corporate executive who retired a few years ago and turned to fortune telling as a hobby. It's amazing how connected we all are in this world. I hope that Brian will move on from this experience and continue to grow. He's still young, and I'm sure he'll find a suitable partner in the future. My brother wants Brian to take over the family business someday, but he hasn't told him yet. He wants Brian to focus on honing skills first, without any distractions. I'm currently busy working on a new cookbook for my husband's publishing company, but I still make time to visit the dormitory regularly. The dormitory is where my culinary journey began, and it continues to inspire me every day. Today, I stand in the kitchen, thinking about what dish to prepare next to delight the students.